All right, everyone, let's dive in. Today we're tackling a really interesting question. Is India really about to become like the world's next factory even?
Yeah, it's a big question, and people are definitely talking about it. We all know India,
Right.
big tech hub, amazing software developers, outsourcing central. But recently, things feel different.
Right, like there's this feeling that India's ready to export more than just, brain power. We're hearing about them making like everything, semiconductors,
Yeah.
aircraft carriers. I even saw something about cricket bats.
It's pretty different from that back office image, yeah.
Totally. So what's the deal?
Well, it seems like there's a deeper goal here. It's not just random stuff. They want to be a major player in manufacturing globally. That whole Make in India thing, it's more than just a catchy slogan, you know? It's like an actual strategy that seems to be like actually working.
It's not even just about the specific products, is it? I was reading about this local for global concept where stuff made in India ends up like all over the world.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing Indian brands and products like becoming recognizable globally.
Yeah.
Think about turmeric, that spice. India already supplies a huge chunk of the world's turmeric, like over 60%.
Wow. I did not know that. I guess all those turmeric lattes I drink. It's kind of crazy to think about how much we rely on India. So it's like they're taking what they're already good at and like scaling it up massively.
Right, and it's not just turmeric, phones, electronics, all sorts of stuff. They're producing more and more and exporting it like
It's
crazy.
super impressive. But okay, let's be real. Becoming a global manufacturing superpower, it's
Mm.
got to be tough.
Oh, absolutely. There are some major
I
challenges.
bet. Like anyone who's ever, ordered something online and then waited forever for it to arrive,
Yeah.
you start to think about all the things that have to go right for stuff to move around the world smoothly. All that infrastructure and the logistics, the supply chains.
Yeah, you need it all. And sure, they've made progress. Like Apple making iPhones in India is a big deal. But they still have a long way to go. Plus, the development is really uneven across the country, right? Even basic stuff like reliable 4G isn't a given everywhere.
It's complicated for sure. And of course, you can't talk about India changing without mentioning, the politics. I mean, Prime Minister Modi, third term, that's huge EE. And he seems to be really pushing this whole India as a global leader thing.
It's definitely a big part of his vision. He's connecting everything, like increased exports, all the policy stuff they're doing. It's all tied into this idea of India becoming a global leader, not just in manufacturing, but like everything, even climate action, renewable energy.
I've been seeing stuff about that too. They're making some pretty big moves on climate change, pushing for sustainability. They even have their own space program now. It's pretty wild to see how much it's changing.
There's also the sense that India is modernizing, getting rid of old rules that don't make sense anymore. I read that they recently got rid of over 1,500 outdated laws.
Wow, 1,500. That's incredible. I bet some of those laws were pretty crazy. Like, imagine getting in trouble for dancing in public. It just shows how much India is changing, becoming more modern, more progressive.
It's symbolic of this bigger transformation, this willingness to like break with the past and try new things. But with all this excitement, I think we got to ask some tough questions too.
Totally agree. Let's get into those tough questions. So before we were talking about India's big plans for manufacturing, but can they really pull it off? There's some big challenges, right?
Yeah, definitely. We mentioned infrastructure, but it's worth like really looking at that. The scale of what they need, it's massive. Reliable transportation, energy, efficient logistics. I mean, for a country as big and diverse as India, it's a huge EE undertaking.
And it's not as simple as just like building some new roads and bridges, right? It's the whole system. Ports, airports, how things move around within the country.
Exactly. It all has to work together smoothly if India really wants to compete globally.
Makes sense. Yeah. And then there's the whole skilled labor thing. You need people who can not only run the factories, but also keep them up to date, innovate.
Oh, yeah. That kind of talent pool, you can't just snap your fingers and create it. It takes time, investment, education, training.
So it's bigger than just getting companies like Apple to build factories there, right? It's about creating a whole ecosystem that can like support a whole industry.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the environmental impact either. I mean, India is already dealing with pollution, climate change. If they're going to ramp up manufacturing, it has to be done in a way that's sustainable.
Right. It's like this balancing act. Grow the economy, create jobs, but also protect the environment and make sure everyone benefits.
Yeah, it's not easy, but other countries have gone through this kind of industrialization. India can learn from them, try to do it better.
So how is this affecting like everyday people in India?
hmm
Are they seeing the benefits?
Well, it's a mixed bag, honestly. On the one hand, yeah, there are jobs, incomes are rising, the economy is growing, some people are definitely benefiting.
But is everyone? I mean, is the gap between the rich and the poor getting wider?
That's a real worry. Policymakers have to be careful. If they don't pay attention, this growth could make things even more unequal.
Okay, we've talked about the challenges a lot. Let's switch gears, talk about opportunities. What are some things India could be really good at?
Well, they've already got that strong IT and software base. They can use that to drive innovation in manufacturing, right? Think about automation, robotics, 3D printing. These are areas where India could really lead.
And what about the global situation? With all the geopolitical stuff happening, supply chains changing, India's in a pretty good position, right?
Oh, yeah. Companies are looking for alternatives to China, and India's looking pretty good. Large workforce, young population, growing middle class. The government's really pushing to attract foreign investment.
So even with the challenges, there's huge potential. It feels like a really important moment for India. They could really change their position in the global economy.
It's exciting to watch, but let's not forget, the competition is fierce. China has been the big player for so long, they're not going to just step aside.
So what are some of India's advantages? How can they stand out?
Well, we mentioned the young workforce. That's huge in manufacturing. Plus, they've got that tech base, lots of skilled engineers, entrepreneurs.
And their democracy, which can be attractive to investors. Stability, transparency.
Good point. And let's not forget, India's culture, the diversity, it's a vibrant, creative place. Lots of innovation, resilience.
But can they use all that potential? Overcome the challenges and actually become this manufacturing powerhouse?
We'll have to see. There's no guarantee. But the journey itself is fascinating. It's happening right now, and it could really change things globally.
Definitely a story worth following. And speaking of stories, we got to talk about the people, the human side of all this. Let's dive into that next, see how it's affecting the people who are actually making this happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a ton about India's manufacturing ambitions, right? Infrastructure, logistics, global competition, the political scene. But now I kind of want to shift focus a bit to the people,
Makes sense. It's about more than factories and numbers at the end of the day.
Exactly. It's about the millions of people in India working hard to build a better future for themselves, their families. That's the story I'm interested in. What are their lives like? What are they hoping for? How's all this affecting them personally?
It's a really mixed bag, like you'd expect. You've got young folks just starting out, excited about the jobs, the chances to move up. There are women breaking into industries that used to be, all guys.
That's awesome to hear. And what about the entrepreneurs, all the startup energy India is known for? Are they getting involved in this too?
Totally. There's a whole wave of new startups popping up, focusing on stuff like robotics, automation, sustainable manufacturing. It's like they're figuring out how to solve the problems and grab the opportunities that come with all this change.
Sounds like there's a real buzz. But there must be some worries too. What are people struggling with?
Skills gap, for sure. Technology's changing so fast in manufacturing, you've got to keep learning, upgrading your skills. That means investing in education, training, making sure people have what they need to succeed in these new jobs.
And it's not just the tech stuff either, right? It's all the other skills, like communication, problem solving, critical thinking. Those are important everywhere these days.
Absolutely. And the social impact, too. People might have to move, leave their villages to find work in the cities, housing infrastructure, fitting into a new place. There are challenges there.
So it's bigger than just jobs, right? You got to create communities, support people through these changes.
Exactly. And we got to think long term, too. How's this going to change India as a whole? More equality, or is it going to make the gap between rich and poor even bigger?
Yeah, tough questions. But we can't ignore them. The human side of this, it has to be front and center.
Totally agree. And let's not forget how the rest of the world sees made in India. Used to be maybe some negative ideas, but that's changing fast, I think.
I've noticed that too. More and more stuff from India that's good quality, innovative, even stylish. Like people are realizing that India can really deliver.
That's great, but it can't just be about image, right? It's about the reality. India's got to nail the quality, the standards, build that trust with consumers globally.
So make in India also means make it great in India.
You got it. And that takes investment in R&D, skills, a whole culture of quality in every part of the process.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mhm.
what's the one big thing you want people to remember?
This is a story that's still being written. India wants to be a global manufacturing leader, but it's not a done deal. Huge potential, tough challenges. And more than anything, it's about the people, their resilience, their determination. That's what's driving it.
It's a story that the whole world is watching, for sure. And as we've seen, it's a story with lots of layers, complications, possibilities. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep learning. We'll see you next time.